what did he say? He something to think about said, crazy thing is the parents will still support it. Yeah. It's one of the parents that are supporting Dan Snyder. Um, and it was very interesting, and I cannot remember the star, but he is black. And the mother was like, I love Dan Snyder. She had not watched the documentary, according to her. But the fact that you know that this documentary is exposing the truth about how child stars felt, that they were in a toxic culture and you would go and adamantly support someone who has been known to do very terrible things to kids. It's just interesting how some people think. And you're absolutely right, because I think people also say that about R. Kelly and some of the people that he was in contact with. They felt that the parents were in support of it or supporting it. And I have a theory about that, because this is what I feel. Okay. You can't put me in a room with a child and I'm going to hurt them. I don't care whose child it is. I don't care if the child has parents or don't have parents. I don't care if the child is well taken care of or not taken care of at all. If I'm in the presence of a child, I will not hurt anybody's child ever. So I don't think that the excuse is, well, because the parents aren't there, then that gives the predator a reason to do that. If you're a predator, you're a predator. It doesn't matter, right? Like, for people to say that because a kid is more vulnerable and a parent may not have been as involved or as engaged or knew what was happening, that they're somehow to blame. I don't believe in blaming the victim's parents. I don't believe in blaming anybody but the person who engaged in the act, or actually, now if the parent knew that that was happening and willingly put their child in that situation, yeah, that's the accessory, and I believe in prosecuting to the fullest extent. But if you're telling me because a parent maybe wasn't as, like me, I'm a, what they call a helicopter parent, so I'm all in your grill. You got my kid, then I need to, like, you gonna have to answer to me like I know where my kid is, right? And that's not always a foolproof way to avoid your children being in danger, but at least for me, it helps me feel secure, right? But let's say left my daughter, somewhere, and maybe I didn't get to her in time, and so some predator, did something. That's not my fault. You can't blame the parent. You can't say that because somebody has a sick mind and they decide to hurt a child, that that is somehow the other person's fault. No, because I don't care what child is around me. Your child is not going to be in danger. That, like, and if you're a person who have no, like, intention of hurting any children, then you will not hurt a child. It doesn't matter how vulnerable that child is. It doesn't matter what support system they have. You will not take advantage of a child just because you can. And so I disagree with that entire notion, but I do understand people's perspective on that. I just disagree completely with that notion. But even if they suspected it, they are wrong for not investigating it. True. True. I think that, remember back then in the 90s and even kind of early 2000s, people did not take SA cases seriously, to be honest. And I think it took a long time. And also that the Me Too movement kind of put people in a different perspective when it came to SA cases, because honestly, that it was not a crime that was taken seriously. And a lot of women who went through that, it was devastating for them, and especially children. So I think that even if you suspected something, maybe maybe you didn't think it was something that egregious. The things that Drake Bell went through with that Brian Peck, it was it was very invasive. If you guys read it, um, yeah, that man took full advantage of Drake Bell, and it was in the worst way. And I think Drake Bell, and you can watch the documentary, he described an incident where he was sleeping and he woke up to Brian Peck abusing him. And he was 15 years old and in complete shock, right? He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to address it, and that's what they bank on, right? A kid not really knowing how to handle that situation. And if you want fame, if you want to be, you're not going to necessarily say anything because you don't know how this will affect your career and affect your life. And a lot of those kids were tasked with thinking about that. And that is what I have a huge problem with this whole Nickelodeon thing, is the fact that these kids had all that burden on them where they're so busy thinking about their career and not making the big bosses upset because they didn't want to lose their jobs. You know what I mean? And a lot of them had a lot on their shoulders. They were supporting their families. That was some good money to them, back then. So um, it was a tough situation to be in. It's a tough situation. um El Nick said, "You're right. A lot of people got away with it, and now you see it coming back to haunt people in the entertainment industry." Not only that, you kind of see how corrupt and how disgusting this entertainment industry is. Like, you really get to see in depth what people go through for fame, what people go through just to have a name. And so it makes you think about the people who are currently famous and what they have went through just to put their names in the spotlight. And I think it's a little bit ridiculous, and it's disgusting. And I hope that something else comes of Nickelodeon doing this. I hope that people start to, see how it influences kids overall. And there's a huge change to the things that we put out. Because I've seen a lot of problematic material, and I always tell my kids, like, you can't watch that. That I don't agree with the messages on this particular episode. And so I have to monitor that. Yeah, I would urge everybody to go watch that documentary. Um it listen, I'm sure that after the 4th part come out, because I haven't watched the 4th part yet, but after that comes out, on Hulu, because I know it's out, but I don't have HBO Max and I don't have whatever the other station is, so I have to wait until Hulu airs it. So when Hulu airs the 4th part, I'm sure I'll have some more to talk about, because I think it's gonna get into more depth about some of the abuse that happened. Um, and so, yeah, it makes you look at your childhood and shows and songs differently. That's right. And that's unfortunate because, you know, your childhood is like this innocent place for most people, right? Some people went through a ton of stuff. For me, it was just an innocent time in my life. And I look back at, what I used to think was just a pure entertainment for kids. And now I kind of have to think about how it influenced me and how it affected me in my childhood, because there was a lot of things that I saw that I thought was kind of normal, and maybe I normalized it a little too fast because I was a kid, and I didn't understand the implications. So, yeah, this was deep, y'all. This was deep.